So VO2 max, yes. For me, I know there's controversies about VO2 max, but maybe if you approach it this way, it may give you a little bit more appreciation for the metric. So first, what is VO2 max? VO2 max is just the ability, the measurement of the ability of the body to consume oxygen. So, and the idea is the more oxygen you can consume, the more you can use it to convert into energy, which would help you run. The other component is well, that's not part of VO2 max, but another good measurement is lactate threshold. But this one's about VO2 max. So now that we know what VO2 max is, the question then becomes, how do we improve it? High intensity workouts. There's, if you go and Google like what VO2 max is all about, how to increase it, they say it's not all the same. So that's again because every individual is different. But the general guideline is that you want to be anywhere between 80 to 90% of your maximum heart rate, and you want to do it for a duration of, say, 20 minutes or more. But again, that time length is different, and it is different for each person. So now that we know how, and so speed workouts, tempo workouts, track workouts that last for quite some time. For me, mostly, I usually don't do track intervals that last 20 minutes long. So, but some people say you can do track workouts and increase your VO2 max. For here at Next Level Running, we focus more on the tempo runs for establishing higher VO2 max. Now you can get a professional measurement and you can use general watches. I have an iWatch, and so with an iWatch it will measure, and then with my iPhone it will tell me my VO2 max. Now the downfalls of VO2 max are actually pretty big, but I have a way around that. So number one, VO2 max is not good for certain age range, and I believe it's either 16 or 18. It won't calculate your VO2 max accurately, or in some devices won't calculate it at all. If you're above 60, I guess the watch becomes, depending on your watch actually, the VO2 max becomes not so reliable. So there's a range there. However, what I like to use it for, assuming you're old enough that the device will let you track the VO2 max, is not even the number. I don't focus so much on the number itself. Like, I don't look at 42, 50, or even 60 and say, wow, I should be a superior runner and compared to other runners. What I actually look at is the trend of the VO2 max. And that's what I'm more concerned about, is the trend. So as I'm running, and even that, I've had experiences where my VO2 max all of a sudden is traveling and then it shoots up. And you're like, whoa, there's no way I went that high all of a sudden, and then comes back down, or gets a little wacky. In those cases, I start ignoring the VO2 max till it catches back up with a trend. And the trends are useful in my opinion, because what you can see is if your training's progressing, you'll see your VO2 max rise slightly over time. And as you hit certain parts of your training, you'll see that it rises, sort of peaks out, then you may dip a little bit and then go back up, and depending on the cycle. So here at Next Level Running, we have the 7 phases in one season, and based on those, we can kind of see or predict where your VO2 max should be traveling. And if it doesn't match that path or that trend, then we know that we may be, sorry, a little wind. I know the wind makes the voice go pretty bad. But as the trend goes up or down, we know where that should generally be, and designing or going through the process. And if it starts going off track, then it's one indicator, not all of the indicators, but it is one indicator to let us know that we may need to change up your running. There are many other factors that we take into consideration, but that is one of the major ones. And one of the things that we find most useful too is at the end of one season in transitioning to the next season. What I tend to find is a lot of people hesitate to take time off, and rightfully so. We feel like that we will lose our capabilities or all the hard work if we take time off. But there is a time and a place to take time off and transition from one season to the next. And what we typically watch for is the VO2 max. Is it rising? Is it most likely when the transition phase, it will stay, it may peak off and kind of ride, and maybe even dip down a little bit. But the overall idea is that by the end of training, you'll see your VO2 max climb, 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 maybe peak a little bit, climb, 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 and then we get to the end of the season, and then it kind of flattens off, and then it may come down a little bit. But your starting VO2 max when you go into your new season should be higher than your prior season, meaning that you're still making progress. Because the whole idea about getting better at running is to find that balance between breaking it down, letting it heal to build itself back up, and going in these cycles of breakdown, healing, breakdown, healing. And that's how we improve anything. Same with muscle, weightlifting, and things like that. So the idea is the same with running. You want to increase, and then you want to give your body some rest, and increase, and give your body some rest. Yeah, there's definitely different things that you can do to help support that VO2 max. Take a look at, there's so many factors, right? What phase are you in? Some of you may not even do phases. So just understanding that there are many different phases and that your VO2 max trends, not so much the numbers, can be very helpful. Now, the numbers themselves can be helpful in comparison to prior running. So for instance, again, if I see that I'm at 50 or 40, whatever the number is, and then I see it moving down, then I can kind of see, okay, where am I compared to when I was before? And that can kind of tell me or help me decide. So for instance, as I'm going down or going through one season and I'm resting and transitioning into the next season, we tend to see VO2 maxes start to decline a little bit. But when I look at that number compared to the last season where we left off, I can kind of see where we would want to generally be with your pace starting off, so that you're picking up where you should be. It's not always science, it just gives us a general guideline. But again, VO2 max is just one measure, and I just wanted to talk about that today because I think if you could use it, it could help give you another way of measuring your progress throughout your season. So I hope these tips help. I hope these tips help. So until next time, happy running.